is on using the Beck Depression Inventory to measure a client's depression. So let's look at our learning outcomes for the day. The first learning outcome is that you will be able to understand and explain the use of the Beck Depression Inventory in measuring someone's depression. So from here on out, I'm going to call this the BDI. It's just a lot easier to say, but that stands for Beck Depression Inventory. Okay, the second learning outcome is that you will be able to administer this test, score it, scale it, and then apply the findings from it to your client's treatment plan. Okay? All right, let's talk a little bit about what the BDI is. The BDI is a tool, it's a paper and pencil assessment that counselors can use to quantify a client's depression. So can anybody tell me a reason that you would want to be able to quantify something abstract like depression?
Yes, if you want to see if the person is being less depressed, you use it to know if they're more depressed or less depressed.
Good. So this gives us a numerical value of someone's depression. And if we have something in a numerical value, then we can measure it. So then it becomes a scientific scale. You can start someone at the beginning with their baseline score, and then you can measure them throughout your treatment to track their score of depression, much like we track our weight on the scale every day to see if it's going up or if it's going down. You can see if their depression is getting worse or if it's hopefully getting better. Okay? Another reason counselors often choose to use the BDI is because it has been proven to be a very reliable and a very valid test for determining someone's level of depression. So this is a quick 3 or 4 minute paper and pencil exercise that can be done in just a few minutes in any kind of setting with you and your client. Whereas there are other tools that can measure depression that psychiatrists or neuropsychologists can administer, and they take hours and hours and hours, and they're very complicated and detailed. But studies have shown that 98% of the time, this 3-minute exam will predict the same outcome as those long, hard tests that are hard to administer because they take up so much time, okay? So that's another reason it's very important to use this, because it's quick, but it's also accurate. Okay, now we're going to talk about how to give it. So we've already discussed that it's paper and pencil, which means they just fill it out on paper. You can administer this, you can give it to the person in their income packet, when they come to you as a client and they fill out all the other forms and everything. You can do this. You can have this in the packet and have it ready and let them take it home and bring it back for the first session, and then you guys can go over it. Or what I prefer is, in one of the beginning sessions of counseling, if someone indicates or you suspect that they have some depression, then you guys can take this in a session together. They can fill it out and then you can talk over the results, okay? Now, one of the things that I found, depending on the diversity of your clients, sometimes there will be someone who either can't read or maybe doesn't understand some of the words. And you guys will see that in a minute when you take the test. There are some words that I've had to explain before. So it is okay to administer this verbally if your client needs that help. But it's meant to be a self-administration questionnaire. So you give it and let them take it, but it's fine if they need help. Okay, after your client takes the BDI, what you do is add up each of the 21 questions scores. So each question is a symptom of depression, and they rate it on a scale from 0 to 3. Then you tally up all of their answers and total the score of both pages combined. Okay? And once you have that number, then you can place your client into a category of depression. So Beck developed these 4 categories of depression when he developed this inventory. So these are the scores. 0 to 13, your client is minimally depressed. 14 to 19, mildly depressed. 20 to 28, moderately depressed. Anything over 29 up to the max of 63, they're considered severely depressed, okay? So those are the categories, and the goal is hopefully not only for their score to reduce numerically throughout treatment, but also to reduce categorically, okay? So you want to be able to see that your clients are getting better with treatment. All right, so now that you guys know what the Beck Depression Inventory is, and you know how to get it, somebody tell me the best way to get good at doing something. Practice.
Do it yourself.
Do it yourself. All right, so I'm going to give you each a BDI. I want you to take it honestly for yourself. I want you to total up your scores, put your score in a category, but then you do not have to share this with the class. This is going to be something that's private, that's just for you, but I want you to take it so that you know what your clients are taking when you give this to them in a counseling session, okay? So I'm going to give everybody 3 or 4 minutes. If you'll just take it, total it, categorize it, and then everybody just look up at me when you're done, okay? When you get done with your assessment, just fold it up so I know that you're done, okay? for our next activity, what I want you to do is pull out a piece of paper and grab your pen. What we're going to do is reflect for 1 minute on the assessment that you just took. So I want you guys to write non-stop for a minute. It can be about anything related to the assessment you just took. I want you to reflect on how the questions were asked, what you thought about the assessment itself. Maybe you have a concern or a question about the administration of it, or maybe you can point out a pertinent benefit to administering this paper and pencil assessment, or maybe you have a question about a drawback to administering this assessment, okay? But I want you to write for 1 minute and reflect on your self-examination of this, and then we're going to share these questions in just a second, okay? So everybody has 1 minute to write, please. Okay, so that's been about a minute. Deborah, could you share a thought with us that you wrote down after taking the BDI?
I felt like the questions were easily understood, maybe with the exception of 1 or 2. But overall, I thought it would be a very beneficial instrument for me to use in my practice.
Which question did you think might be misunderstood?
Well, the only one would be the ones that had multiple choice, multiple answers, A and B to them. You have to keep in mind what you're actually answering.
That's a good point. So if you guys will notice, I believe it could be question 16, maybe. Y'all could take a look at question 16. It's the one with 2, there are a couple of them that have 2 different parts. So when you ask about sleeping and eating, a lot of times clients get confused and they may answer twice on the questions that have an A or a B. But the question is actually asking which direction the changes have occurred. So you just want to clarify with your client. If they answer twice, you just need to speak to them about it and really try to figure out in which direction their changes occurred. Okay, Hugh, what was your thought?
This appears to be a positive approach to dispel negative thoughts. If the person is honest, the questions will be well established.
Good. So when you mean dispel negative thoughts, what do you mean?
But if someone is depressed and they have negative thoughts, and just reading these questions will help them evaluate whether they're too negative versus being positive.
Right. So are you saying that maybe it would help them articulate how they're feeling bad? Okay, good. That's a good point. All right, Julia, what did you write down?
I actually have 2 things.
Sure.
All right. At what age is this appropriate to use? I'm wondering if it's appropriate to use with children, teens, elderly, as well as...
Okay, so this Beck Depression Inventory is for adults. There is a children's version. However, this one that we're working on today is for people 18 and older. Okay, all the way up until any age over 18 is fine, but it is not appropriate for children. Okay, what's your next question?
Well, I have known a severely depressed person, a family member, and I'm not sure that this person would have been able to answer these questions.
Why?
If you've ever seen someone who's clinically depressed, they are just completely disabled.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if it would ever be appropriate for a family member to fill it out for them or help them with it.
something that you would have to really consider on an individual basis. Now, the point of this self-administrative questionnaire is so that the person can gain insight into their own depression. But if they're past that point, then you can consider other options. You may want to use something else, like maybe send them for a psychological evaluation with a psychiatrist or a psychologist, or perhaps, especially if it's family therapy, if it's family that brought them into therapy, then, I would say, sure, let's get some answers. But also another aspect of what you're talking about is somebody who's so severely depressed, they may lack insight into their own depression. So in that case, then I would think it would, as long as it's okay with the client that they're having somebody helping them answer the questions, because of confidentiality agreements and things like that. But if it's a family therapy session, or if they're okay with it, or if they admit that they need help filling this out, then sure.
Okay.
Okay, Mike, what was your question?
Well, my question was a little bit similar because the individual takes this test for his benefit. Let's say the family member says, well, we want to get you more help, or maybe put you in a situation where you're under control and such, and the person says, well, I'll answer these questions so I get a lower score. Do you ever use the child, the spouse, or the child, the person, and say, this is the right answer on this particular question they have in the situation? It's for an individual, but do you get outside help?
Well, that's similar to Julia's question. So my thoughts on that would be, in the counseling relationship, this is a one-on-one thing. Your individual client is going to fill this out. You can't control whether or not they lie to you, whether or not they lack insight, whether or not they want to answer better, so maybe they think you think better of them. I mean, that happens in counseling, okay? You can't control that. Now, so I would say for the administration of the BDI, this is supposed to be something that your client takes, you score it, you guys talk about it together. That doesn't mean that throughout the rest of therapy, throughout the rest of counseling, you don't have family members, you don't do family therapy, you can do all that stuff. But for just the administration of the BDI, this is supposed to be between individual and counselor. And you cannot control their reaction to the questions, okay? All right, so we're going to do another project really quickly. I want you guys to be very, very comfortable scoring these exams after your clients have taken them and placing them in one of the 4 categories. So I'm going to hand out a stack of generically answered packets. I'm going to do some with you. I want you to total up each packet, score it, and scale it. And then on the front of the page, you want to write the numerical value as well as the category, okay, on your paper. We're doing this so you guys are really familiar and it's easy for you to score them and you can do it quickly. take them, and then we're gonna do some more practice on categorizing them. So, did anybody encounter the dilemma of having two answers on one question?
I had a couple that looked careless. It wasn't that they actually made two circles, they just
Okay.
went around two numbers.
Well, that's very common. So, in that regard, you're just going to have to ask them, you know, which one of these did you really make a circle? And it's not uncommon also for somebody just to circle haphazardly. So, if you do have one that's not for sure, just ask them about it. Because remember, the goal of this is for you guys to establish this baseline of depression together. So it's perfectly fine to ask them about their answers, to ask them about their, you know, maybe their lack of participation. I mean, I've had plenty of clients that you ask them to fill this out and they don't even want to fill it out. You gotta sometimes give them a little push to get them to fill it out so you can get that answer from them, okay? All right, so I'm going to call out some numbers, and you guys using this scale up here, you call out the category when I call out the number, okay? All right, this one has a 0.
Minimal.
54.
Severe.
2.
Minimal.
50.
Severe.
44.
Severe.
63.
Severe.
29.
Severe.
Okay, guys. I noticed whoever scored this one put a 29 and put them in the moderate category, so we got to be careful. Okay, 29, even though that's the very bottom of the severe, that is severe. Okay, let's do a 12. 16 and a 31. Okay, good. All right, so you guys really got the hang of it. Who in here feels that they would be able to administer this to a client and total it up, tally it, add it up, scale it, and then understand what that means about your client's depression? Who could do that?
Pretty simple.
Everybody?
That's all in the categories you can.
Good.
Yes.
Okay, so yes, that's to me, the biggest perk of using the Beck Depression Inventory. It's very easy. If you can add, you can do it. If you have a cell phone, you can use your calculator and add them up. You can do it, okay? So anybody can use this in their practice to help their clients. All
Can I
right.
ask a question?
Yes, please.
Immediately after they have taken this, do you score it and share the results with them?
Yeah, you can even have them add it up. I mean, you want to check it for
What would
exactly.
be the first thing that you could say to them to encourage them? You know, some of this would be pretty negative to hear. Right?
Yeah.
But you didn't think it was quite as bad as it was.
Yeah.
What would just the very first thing that would come out of your mouth after you've told them what their score is and what it means?
Well, something that I would do would be to add it up with them, you know, or let them add it up, let them tell me what their score is. You want to check it for its accuracy for any numerical mistakes. But then I would ask them, you know, what do you think about this? Is this news to you? Did you know that you were this depressed? Or maybe it's somebody that scored a 14 and are clinically depressed and they didn't think they were at all. You know, so you want to ask them, what do you think about this? But then I would say, as far as you looking for encouragement, after you ask them for their reaction to the test, I would think to explain to them the point of it. So the point of it is to get a baseline and to monitor their progress. And the point of therapy is for things to get better. So I would say an encouraging thought would be something like, you know, we're going to take this again in 4 weeks, and we're really going to work through those 4 weeks, and hopefully the number will be better the next time we take it, okay? So you want to be encouraging, but you also, you know, you want to get their reaction from it too.
Okay?
All right, last activity, guys. I want you guys to pair up as a group. I want you guys to pair up as a group, and I want you to come up with a question as a group together. We're not going to do individuals. You guys come up with a question together to ask that group. And you guys come up with a question together to ask that group. Okay? You got 1 minute, okay?
Father Baby, do you think it would be a good idea to explain prior to taking the test, to give them a heads up about these questions that have possibly start,
Absolutely. And you also want to, if you know your client well enough, if you've spoken to them before, if you anticipate any reading problems with them, just address that in advance. You may need to explain the word in advance or something. But yeah, absolutely. This is all about openness and honesty. So that you don't want to hand this to them blindly and say, here you go. Absolutely. Explain it the best you can, okay? All right, who's got your question ready? All right, this group over here, I want you to ask this group, and you guys are going to answer.
Okay. How can you minimize the subjectivity of the answers?
We're supposed to answer that?
Yes, you guys answer. What do you think about that? The question was, how do you minimize the subjectivity of each question?
Well, as they're taking the test, I don't think you can minimize it, but maybe as you get into counseling, as you go through all the different symptoms, the different areas, I think you're going to know if the client was, exaggerating or if they were minimizing. I think you would know that as you went along.
Good. Okay, Mike, do you have a thought to add to that?
You can cheat on it, but you can probably see the reaction whenever you talk to them and look in their eyes and say, is this really what you really mean? Is this correct?
Well, and let me ask you, what would be your client's benefit in cheating on a self-examination? When you say cheating, I'm assuming you mean answering dishonestly. What would be their benefit?
Well, the person's state of mind may be that I want to get better, and I'll do whatever it takes to get better, and then I'll handle it down the road. But right now, I'm going to do it myself.
Okay. Now, you guys, I want you to ask your question to this group.
Okay, if you've got this assessment tool here with the 21 areas, 21 symptoms, what would you begin counseling on first? Would you pick out the things that were physical? Yeah, the higher scores. What would be in counseling, what would you begin working with the client? Would you just ask the client what they wanted to work on first? What would you do?
Well, that's a
How would
good
you approach
question.
that?
I suppose that personally, I would work on any physical things that I could see. I would get them started on maybe some healthier lifestyle things. And then I suppose that I would perhaps work through some of the emotional things here when we talk about irritability or those kinds of things. But I would suppose the first thing I would do would be to suggest some changes that would make them feel better physically.
What would you do if they marked the suicidal with a 3?
Good point. Can you answer that for me?
Okay, that I've got to look at that.
I would say, let's talk through this thing. Tell me your feelings and what made you answer for really that.
Okay. That's a good point. The last thing, this is our last point of the lesson. If you have a client, no matter what the rest of their answers are, if you have a client that marks they would kill themselves now if they had a chance, you go into immediate suicide prevention, okay? So you're gonna ask them about it, you're gonna take action. If that's maybe they need to find a hospital to be admitted to, maybe they need, you can sign, counselors, we use these things called suicide contracts, where they have to promise you, sign a contract that they will not hurt themselves until, and then maybe you have another session tomorrow, and hopefully they're feeling a little better while you're arranging some more treatment. But no matter what their score is categorically, you don't take that answer lightly, okay? All right. Anybody have any final thoughts? Can everybody explain the use of it?
Yes.
And can everybody administer it?
Yes.
Okay, then we accomplished our learning outcomes. Thank you, guys.
Teacher.
Thank you.